You walked into the kitchen for something. You know you needed it. You could feel the intention just seconds ago, solid, clear, purposeful. And then it was gone. Not misplaced. Gone. You stood there, looking at the counter, the cabinets, the light above the sink, searching your own mind like a stranger in a house that used to be yours. Maybe you laughed it off. Maybe someone nearby made a joke, and you smiled along. But inside, something shifted. A quiet, uncomfortable question surfaced, one you didn't quite want to answer. Is this just getting older? Or is something else happening? That question matters more than most people realize. Because the line between normal aging and accelerated cognitive decline is thinner than we are told, and the warning signs often begin long before anyone takes them seriously. Welcome to Mindgevity. Today, we are going to talk about 7 silent signs that your brain may be aging faster than it should. Not to frighten you, but because understanding what your brain is trying to tell you might be one of the most important things you do this year. Here is what many doctors don't emphasize enough during a routine checkup: the brain does not simply age on a fixed timeline. 2 people of the same age can have brains that differ by a decade or more in biological terms. Genetics plays a role, yes, but research increasingly shows that lifestyle, chronic stress, sleep patterns, and inflammation are among the most powerful drivers of how fast your brain actually ages. The symptoms often feel ordinary. That is what makes them dangerous. They blend into daily life so smoothly that most people adapt around them without ever questioning what they mean. The first silent sign is brain fog, and not the kind you feel after a bad night of sleep. We are talking about a persistent, low-grade mental cloudiness that settles in and refuses to lift. Thoughts feel slower. Words feel just out of reach. You read the same paragraph twice and realize you absorbed almost nothing. Simple decisions take longer than they should. You find yourself staring at emails, knowing what you want to say but unable to connect the thought to the sentence. What may be happening inside the brain during these moments is more serious than a temporary slump. Neuroinflammation, inflammation of brain tissue, has been identified in research as a significant contributor to cognitive fog. When the brain is chronically inflamed, the communication between neurons slows. The prefrontal cortex, which manages reasoning, decision-making, and working memory, becomes less efficient. It is not that the information disappears. It is that the pathways to retrieve it become congested. Think of it like a highway during rush hour. The destinations are still there, but nothing moves the way it should. The second sign is something quieter and often mistaken for laziness: mental exhaustion that arrives before the day earns it. You wake up, and within a few hours, your mind already feels tired. Not your body, your mind. Conversations feel like effort. Following a complex discussion at work requires concentration that used to come naturally. By afternoon, your cognitive reserves feel so depleted that the simplest tasks feel monumental. This type of mental fatigue is connected to what researchers call cognitive load dysregulation, the brain's diminishing capacity to manage mental energy efficiently. In a younger, well-functioning brain, neural resources are allocated and replenished with relative ease. In a brain aging under stress, sleep deprivation, or nutritional deficiency, the mitochondria within neurons, the microscopic engines that power brain cells, begin to underperform. The result is a mind that runs out of fuel faster than it should. And over time, chronically operating on cognitive fumes accelerates the aging process itself. The third sign lives in the night. Poor sleep, and not simply trouble falling asleep, but the kind of fragmented, unrestful sleep where you wake at 3 in the morning with a mind that refuses to be quiet. Where dreams are vivid and exhausting rather than restorative. Where you lie in the dark and feel the weight of thoughts that seem to have nowhere to go. Most people accept this as a normal part of getting older. It is not. During deep sleep, the brain activates what scientists call the glymphatic system, a cleansing network that flushes out metabolic waste products, including amyloid beta proteins, which are strongly associated with the development of Alzheimer's disease. When sleep is consistently shallow or disrupted, this biological cleaning cycle is compromised. Toxic proteins accumulate. Neural connections weaken. The brain, instead of arriving at each day refreshed and repaired, carries forward the residue of everything it could not clear the night before. Over months and years, this accumulation leaves a measurable mark. Pause for a moment. If any of these first three signs feel familiar, if you recognized yourself in any of those descriptions, that recognition itself is valuable information. Not a diagnosis. Not a certainty. But a signal worth listening to. Because the brain that is asking for help rarely shouts. It whispers. And the people who hear those whispers early are the ones who change what is still changeable. The fourth sign is one of the most quietly devastating, increasing forgetfulness that goes beyond names and keys. This is forgetting conversations you had last week. Missing details of events you attended. Reaching for a word mid-sentence, a word you have used 1,000 times, and finding it simply absent. What makes this sign particularly distressing is not the forgetting itself, but the awareness of it. You know something has changed. You just cannot always explain it to anyone else without sounding like you are overreacting. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory consolidation region, is among the first areas to show vulnerability to accelerated aging. Studies using brain imaging have demonstrated that chronic stress, elevated cortisol levels, and poor cardiovascular health can measurably reduce hippocampal volume over time. When the hippocampus shrinks, the encoding of new memories becomes less reliable. The filing system weakens. And the harder the brain works to compensate, the more exhausted it becomes, creating a cycle that compounds the very problem it is trying to solve. The fifth sign is one that many people never connect to brain health at all: a slow erosion of motivation and drive. Activities that once excited you feel flat. Projects you cared about sit unfinished. You find yourself cycling through phone apps or the television not because you are enjoying it, but because making a more meaningful choice feels like too much effort. It is easier to drift than to decide. This is not depression, necessarily. And it is not simply boredom. What may be happening is a subtle but significant disruption in dopaminergic function, the brain's reward and motivation circuitry. As the brain ages under stress or poor lifestyle conditions, dopamine receptor sensitivity can decline, making previously rewarding experiences feel less satisfying. The brain's anticipation system, the mechanism that propels you toward goals, curiosity, and engagement, begins to quiet down. And without that quiet internal engine running, life can feel strangely muted without a clear explanation for why. The sixth sign is chronic stress, not as an event, but as a permanent condition that your nervous system has quietly normalized. You no longer recognize it as stress because it has been your baseline for so long. You function within it. You make decisions from inside it. You sleep inside it. And all the while, elevated cortisol is doing something to your brain that no amount of willpower can simply override. Cortisol, in short bursts, is essential. It sharpens focus, prepares the body for challenge, and then dissipates. But when cortisol remains chronically elevated, as it does in people living under long-term financial pressure, relational conflict, caregiving demands, or unresolved grief, it becomes neurotoxic. Research has shown that prolonged cortisol exposure damages synaptic connections, suppresses neurogenesis in the hippocampus, and accelerates telomere shortening in brain cells, a biological marker of aging at the cellular level. The brain under chronic stress is a brain that is aging faster than the calendar suggests. The seventh and final sign is one of the most overlooked because it lives in the body rather than the mind: physical fatigue that is directly connected to mental overload. A heaviness in the limbs that no amount of rest seems to fully relieve. A feeling that your body and your mind have entered into some kind of mutual exhaustion pact, each dragging the other down in a cycle that coffee cannot break and weekends cannot repair. The brain-body connection in aging is not metaphorical, it is physiological. The vagus nerve, which runs from the brainstem through the chest and into the abdomen, serves as the primary communication highway between your brain and your major organ systems. When the brain is chronically stressed or cognitively overburdened, vagal tone decreases. The body's ability to shift into a true recovery state diminishes. Inflammation rises. Immune function falters. and the body begins to reflect externally what the brain is experiencing internally, a system that is working too hard with too little restoration. 7 signs. Brain fog that lingers. Mental exhaustion that precedes the effort. Sleep that no longer heals. Forgetfulness that goes beyond the casual. A motivation that has quietly dimmed. Stress so deeply embedded it no longer feels like stress. And a physical fatigue that mirrors the mind's depletion. Individually, each of these can have innocent explanations. But together, especially if several of them have been present for months or longer, they form a pattern that deserves serious, compassionate attention. Here is what neuroscience has made increasingly, and beautifully, clear: the brain is not a fixed organ. It is not a machine that simply wears down with use. The brain retains, throughout life, a remarkable capacity for adaptation, a quality scientists call neuroplasticity. New neural connections can form. Damaged pathways can reroute. Inflammation can be reduced. Sleep architecture can improve. The glymphatic system can be supported. Dopamine sensitivity can be restored. Cortisol levels can be regulated. None of these changes happen overnight. But all of them are possible, and all of them begin with awareness. The habits that protect the brain are not exotic or inaccessible. Consistent, quality sleep is among the most powerful interventions available to any human being, and it costs nothing. Physical movement, even in moderate amounts, has been shown in clinical research to stimulate brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that supports the growth and maintenance of neurons. Managing chronic stress through intentional practices, whether breath work, nature exposure, or meaningful social connection, is not self-indulgence. It is neurological maintenance. And the foods that reduce inflammation in the body reduce inflammation in the brain as well. You are not too far gone. That matters. Whatever you recognized in yourself during these 7 signs, whatever quietly resonated or gently alarmed, the fact that you are here, paying attention, asking the question, means something important. The brain that is still curious about its own health is a brain that still has the capacity to change. And change, at any age, begins with a single decision to take what you know seriously. If this video opened something for you, or a question, a concern, a sense of recognition, let us know in the comments. You do not need to have all the answers. Sometimes, just naming what you have been quietly carrying is the first step toward something better. And if this kind of content serves you, honest, science-grounded, and made for those of us who want to understand what is happening inside the brain we live in every day, then subscribe to Mindgevity. Because protecting your mind is not a luxury. It is the most important investment you will ever make.